Welcome back. Thank you for joining me for another insight. My name is Vince, aka Vinny Mac. All right, today I want to speak to you about, our thinking and how do you become a killer of unrighteous thoughts? Because we need to start becoming aware of these thoughts that we are thinking. And, are we actually doing what the Bible is instructing us to do? And that is to demolish any thought that tries to prop itself up against the Lord Himself, against God. I see so many marriages being in turmoil, being under attack. I see so many financial problems happening, and I see so many rebellious children, or situations where they are rebellious children, and people are complaining about how difficult everything is. I know I've certainly been having my own journey with regards to that. My teenage daughter and our relationship has been a real battlefield, but we're making progress. And the reason why we're making progress is because I started addressing this particular issue, this core issue. And I want to share this with you in terms of your own journey and your perspective. Because even my financial situation has made a total turnaround because I started addressing this one fundamental. And it's the one thing that we always overlook, especially as Christians. We do not pay attention to this the most. This is probably one of the last things on our agenda that we tackle. So I want to encourage you, make this a priority. Start dealing with this particular aspect first, and you will see a drastic transformation happening in your journey. Okay, so thank you for joining me for another insight on this channel. I provide you with value through these insights from a grounded perspective, helping you tap into a higher purpose so that you can start living your life God's way. At the end of the day, God's plan really is to prosper us and not to do us harm. But sometimes a lot of us, like Job, finds ourselves in situations where everything is just going completely wrong. But I love that reality and that awareness that Job had when everything fell apart in front of him. And he said, you know what? The thing that I feared the most, in other words, the thing that I was focusing on the most, the thoughts that I've been thinking about the most, has finally manifested in my life. And we need to come to that point where we become aware how our thoughts actually affect the reality that we find ourselves in. If your marriage is suddenly experiencing difficulty, or not suddenly, if your marriage is experiencing difficulty, if your finances just doesn't want to come right no matter what you do, things just don't want to sort themselves out, and you are growing increasingly frustrated because you do not know how to sort out the situation. I want to tell you that the key problem is not your faith or your lack of faith or your belief system. Well, it kind of like dwells back to your belief systems, but it starts, the fundamental, the root is your thoughts. What are you focusing on a day-to-day basis? Because like I said, like Job, he got that awareness. When everything fell apart, when his children died, when his cattle died, and he got raided by the raiders, at the end of the day, he came to that realization that it was his thinking that started creating these problems and manifesting these problems in his life. It's difficult for us as Christians to accept that and understand that our thinking can actually lead or create problems in our lives. We always think that it's the enemy attacking us, when in actual fact it is us. We are attacking ourselves through the thoughts, and we are giving credit over to the enemy, undue credit. So this insight really wants to challenge your line of thinking and really encourage you to open up yourself, to start thinking more righteous thoughts and becoming more aware of your thinking and the power that lies behind the thoughts that flow through your head. Now, researchers say that we have about 35,000 to 75,000 thoughts flowing through our head on a day-to-day basis. So you can do the maths for yourself and start saying, how many of those thoughts am I actually registering, consciously registering on a day-to-day basis? How many thoughts am I actually aware that I am actually thinking this particular thought on a day-to-day basis? And if you find that a lot of that thoughts are actually repetitive, they're actually repeating themselves. So one of the first fundamentals that's really been helping me shift my perspective and shift my behaviors and the way I show up in the world is I started taking responsibility for my thoughts. I started paying attention to what I'm thinking. And how I did that is I started journaling. Because the minute you take a pen and a paper and you start writing your thoughts down, you start funneling your thoughts. And suddenly you become aware of what you actually are thinking of on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it can be a bit embarrassing if you realize what you're actually thinking about. Especially for me as a Christian, I'm thinking, why am I thinking this thought, in that particular situation? Why am I feeling so weak with regards to uncertainty in my future? Why am I so afraid, And these feelings are deeply hidden inside of you. Unless you start becoming aware of these thoughts, you're not really going to see the root cause of the problems that is manifesting in your life, right? And we don't like to do that. We don't like to journal our thoughts because we realize and we understand That by paying attention to our thoughts, we're going to have to come face to face with the person that we actually are at our core. And in order to change that person, we need to address the thoughts and the beliefs that we have. So I want to encourage you, get into the habit of journaling, get yourself into the habit where you start paying attention to these thoughts. And once you are aware of these thoughts, you can start changing the behaviors that these thoughts are then leading to. Right, so once I started becoming aware of the problems, I was then empowered. I was put in a situation where I could start confessing these problems to God and say, or these thoughts to God and saying, Lord, I don't know if this is from you. I don't believe this is a righteous thought. How does this represent me to the people out there that I'm trying to impact? And by doing that, I've been able to shift my life fundamentally on so many different areas. My relationship with my daughter, my youngest daughter, that was so fractured, that was so broken, is now starting to mend itself. It's starting to heal because I started paying attention to the thoughts that I'm thinking with regards to that particular relationship. My financial situation is drastically changing, improving in leaps and bounds because I started paying attention to the thoughts that I'm thinking with regards to money and how I show up and my relationship with money in my life. These are things that we don't really like to address, like I said, but it's important that we do address them. And I saw in my own journey by addressing them, and I see this in other people's journeys as well. The minute they start addressing their thoughts, the minute they start paying attention to the thoughts that they're thinking, they start wrestling back control in their lives. It's definitely worked for me, and I know and I believe it will work for you. But you have to practice that fundamental of being aware of your thoughts that you are thinking on a day-to-day basis. And you have to come to a point where you are confessing all these thoughts over to the Lord. You need to give it. This is why the word says, cast your burdens unto Jesus, right? So you need to confess and cast your burdens unto Christ, because his burden is light and his yoke is easy. So he will be there to help you carry or to carry you through the difficulties. But it's up to you to take that first step. It's up to you this is where faith actually comes, when you start becoming aware and you start stepping into that awareness that this is wrong. This is not how I want my life to be. And you step into that awareness. And I'm telling you, when you do that, there's going to be a fundamental shift happening in your life. Okay, so also bear in mind that once you've confessed your sins to God, once you've cleared your thoughts and you've given up those thoughts to the Lord, the law of the universe is that the universe does not like voids. In science, they say that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. Right, so once you've confessed your thoughts up to God and you have this void in terms of your thinking, you need to fill it with something. So the question really is, what are you going to fill that void with? And I want to share with you out of the book of Philippians, where Paul says, in Philippians 8, he tells us exactly, fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. It tells you to think about these things. So when your marriage is in difficulty, when your finances is like on the fence, and you don't know how to get back because the lawyers are calling you every 5 minutes, fix your thoughts on these things. Fix your thoughts on the good and the honorable things. What was good in your marriage? Surely there had to be one good thing in your marriage. Fix your thoughts on that consistently, persistently when you're going through the challenges, when you're going through that period where you really want to kill your spouse. Okay? Please don't kill your spouse. But when you're going through the difficulties and you're going through the challenges, fix your mind on those things. That is what God is teaching you through his word. And this is why it's so important that we need to pay attention to our thoughts. I was going through challenges with my daughter, with my teenage daughter, and our relationship was really, really fractured. The effects of the divorce started kicking in afterwards. We thought everything was fine, and then suddenly it manifested into something that it shouldn't be, and our relationship became very, very fractured. I could fixate on the fact that we have this fractured relationship, and after speaking to God about this and having some people intervene as well, I realized that I needed to fix my thoughts on what is good, what is honorable, and what is right in our relationship. And I started with all the good memories and all the good things that we experienced as father and daughter. And I started shifting my heart and my focus into all of that. Every time I go through a difficult period, I focus my heart, I focus my thinking, everything, into all the good that we've experienced. And I take that feeling and that emotion and I transfer it into this difficulty that we are experiencing. And I show up as that person experiencing that particular emotion. That shift in terms of my thinking has helped in terms of my relationship with my daughter. I believe it can help in terms of your relationship within your marriage. It can help in terms of your relationship with your finances. It can help in terms of your relationship with that promotion that you want at work. Because when you shift your thinking from everything that is negative, when you start shifting your focus to what is positive, the one positive thing that you can find in there. Like Tony Robbins says, where attention goes, energy flows. And that energy is going to start flowing into that particular situation in such an overwhelming manner that it will finally overcome whatever it is that's trying to come against you. So if your marriage is going through difficulties, if your finances is going through difficulties, if you have a relationship with a child that is just not coming right at all, focus on what is good, what is honorable, and let these things overflow in you from your heart into that situation. Okay, so by practicing these fundamentals in my life, I've learned to become a real killer of unrighteous thoughts. And if you apply these fundamentals in your life, you too can start killing off unrighteous thoughts and making a drastic shift in terms of your journey. If you took value out of what I've just shared right here, then please share it with the next person. Let's impact lives out there. Let's help people transform their thinking so that they can start showing up in life God's way. If you haven't yet, please by all means subscribe to the channel and definitely give the channel a like. I'm looking to impact you with much more content like this from a godly perspective to help impact your life, to shift your thinking and take your life to a higher level so that you can start living your life God's way. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you on the next Insight. I pray that you took value from this particular one. And until we meet on our next Insight, this is Vinnie Max saying, change your thinking, change your world.